Now, the power of a picture. This crying girl from Honduras became the literal poster child for Trump's border crackdown. Her pain was real, her tears very real. But the photo did not show what some people thought it did. It did not show, in that case, a family being broken up. Now, Time magazine is under scrutiny for using the photo on its cover, and the editor of Time will join me in just a moment. But let's start with what we know about the girl. I asked Getty photographer John Moore about what he witnessed in the desert that night, June 12th.
Brian, I had been photographing the Border Patrol as they detained people and then took people into custody. In this particular photo, which touched me very much and many other people in the course of this last week, the mother is being searched as she set her daughter down there at a transport vehicle. The little girl is crying, and she did the entire time that she was there on the ground. They were taken to a processing center, and at that center, we know that other children and parents were separated. I never knew if this little girl and her mother would be. When they were taken away, we really had no idea about that. But at that time, it was happening with many other children and their parents.
So some families were being split up, but according to the government and the child's father, this particular mother and child were not separated. Joining me now in an exclusive interview about the backlash to the cover is Time Magazine's editor-in-chief, Edward Felsenthal. Ed, thanks for being here.
Sure.
As soon as it was revealed through an interview with the child's father, the family had not been separated, there was a really strong right-wing backlash to your cover, including from the Trump administration. Did you make a mistake by having this crying girl on the cover?
Look, I think John Moore's photo was and will remain an iconic one. We chose the photo because this little girl became the face of this story on front pages and home pages and TV screens
but
and
maybe
Facebook
she
feeds.
shouldn't have been the face of this story if she wasn't separated from her mom.
Well, you know, as John just said and has said all along, none of us in the media who used the photo knew what had happened to the girl after this precise moment. And I actually think part of the power of the image is that unknown. This was a girl who's coming to America, has just completed one terrifying journey, and whatever its contours, whatever happens to her, faces another very frightening journey as well.
But by Monday of this week, we knew that she hadn't been separated from her mom. In fact, on Tuesday, you all issued a correction to a web story about that.
I don't believe the case. We did make an error, which obviously I regret and hate making errors anytime.
Sure.
But we made an error on a web story early in the week, not part of the cover package, in which we said that the mother had been separated, and we quickly and transparently corrected that. We didn't know, nobody using this photo knew on Monday or Tuesday that they had not been separated.
Well, we knew according to the government they had not been separated, but by Monday, CNN reported according to the government they had not been separated. Now, I understand we should be skeptical of what the government's saying when it comes to this story. And to this day, we still don't know the status of a lot of these kids that have been separated. It's sickening. But I just wonder about the use of this photo and whether you all discussed whether it was the appropriate one to symbolize the family separation policy.
We discussed it, as we discuss every cover, and I felt that this photo symbolized this moment in America. She became the face of this debate, of this crisis, and juxtaposing her with the person whose decisions, in whose hands her fate was held, I thought was a powerful, important statement of the decisions we have to make as a country.
Press Secretary Sarah Sanders responded to this controversy on Friday. Here's part of what she wrote. She said, "It's shameful that Dems and the media have exploited this photo of a little girl to push their agenda. She was not separated from her mom. The separation here is from the facts." Has this done damage to Time Magazine?
You know, with just speaking directly to Sarah's comment, you know, it's always hard with images of children. But this story was about children. It's hard, it's complicated, but I was struck by the comment of the father, who in a couple of his interviews late in the week said that he was proud and pleased that his daughter had become a symbol of this of something bigger than herself. And he said he hoped that the picture had touched Trump's heart.
And to be clear, the damage done to these families is so much bigger of a story than what happened undercover. I am not trying to claim otherwise. But let's look at some of how the right-wing media has portrayed this. I mean, here's the Daily Caller saying the media's narrative about family separation at the border has been completely demolished, as the truth behind a viral photo of a crying child tells a completely different story. This was the top story on pro-Trump websites on Friday. It's still a top story in some of these sites now. I mean, they're using this one issue to try to distract from what is a disgusting situation at the border.
Well, I dare say the photos, gets back to what you were just discussing with Norm, the photos we're not seeing are far more disturbing than the photos we are seeing. And that's part of what's happening here as well.
What is Time doing to try to get access at the border? I assume you're trying.
We have been. Haley Edwards on our staff has been covering this issue for months. We've tried to get access, and to date have not been given access to the detention centers and so forth. But I do think it's telling to me that when Trump announced the executive order, he said he didn't like the sight of what was happening at the border. And I think these images, all of them, they portray a great dilemma for our country that is playing out every hour on that border, and demonstrating the images that we've seen, the challenge of doing this humanely and intelligently.
I wonder, given the president's well-known readership of Time magazine for decades, do you think about him seeing the cover when you're producing it these days?
Not really. Not
No?
really.
I think I would. I would think about, hey, the president might see this.
I'm certainly aware of his interest in the cover and the way he talks about the cover and has talked about the cover. I suppose I would say it doesn't affect what we decide to do on the cover. It's not aimed at him.
And the governor of Mississippi this morning, Phil Bryant, came out and said it's time for everyone to cancel their subscription to this fake news rag. You can put up on screen his tweet. He's calling you out for this cover issue. Has the magazine been hurt?
Read the coverage, read the reporting. We did make a mistake, and obviously I regret that mistake and wish we hadn't made it, but we fixed it. We fixed it quickly, as all responsible media outlets do, and our coverage has been fair and thorough, and will continue to be.
The president, of course, when he attacks media outlets or makes mistakes, very, very rarely corrects them. So I think it's so important to reinforce that we do correct our errors. Yeah. Great to see you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.